Welcome to Career Pathways, a series developed by the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Indiana University East. We will introduce you to professionals in our regions who hold an undergraduate degree in the liberal arts. Our conversations will explore the pathways that have led them to their current professional positions. We will also learn more about the knowledge and skills they gained as undergraduates that have aided them in their professional lives.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Career Pathways. I am your host, Liz Ferris, the Career and Experiential Learning Coordinator at Indiana University East, and I am here today with John Burkhart and Jessica Baker, both who work at IU East, and they are here today to talk about the career paths that they have chosen. I'm going to first start with having them introduce themselves, so if you two would just share what your role is currently and share what your undergraduate degree was in.
Go ahead.
My current role is a Scholar Corps Americorps member here at IU East, and I serve with 21st Century Scholar students. My undergraduate major was psychology.
Great, thank you.
Currently I work in the School of Humanities and Social Science. My undergraduate degree was in General Studies.
Okay. So let's start out with why each of you chose the undergraduate major that you chose. John, why don't we start with you? How did you land on that?
Much like a lot of the students that I advise, I had a lot of interest in my undergraduate. In the General Studies degree, I actually ended up with 3 minors, so that will speak to how many different places or curiosities that I had. So I ended up with a minor in sociology, psychology, and interpersonal relations. So that's essentially how I ended up there. Was just I had this curiosity that couldn't be satisfied. So I just poked around and did a lot of different things.
Did someone help you with that decision?
No. So I had changed a number of times, and I distinctly remember as I was nearing graduation that they had encouraged me to explore that, but I kind of knew that that's where I was going to end up with as many times as I had changed my major.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Jessica?
Sure. I originally started out trying to find something in the medical field that I enjoyed. They tell you job security, medical field, you'll make lots of money. So I tried for several years bouncing around majors in the medical field. And I actually transferred here to IU East from Ohio State, and I love the campus culture. Still wasn't sure what I wanted to major in, so I decided on psychology because I wanted to learn more about people, why they do the things they do, and psychology classes were interesting. So it was more kind of just a gut instinct choice for me.
Okay, great, thank you. So as you were declaring your majors, and maybe those plans changed, but what were some initial plans that you had, or if you didn't know, what did you do about trying to find out what your next step would be in your career path? You want to start?
Sure. I had no idea, honestly, at the beginning. I kind of bounced around with a few different things. I thought about counseling at first, but I researched that a little bit, researched graduate schools. Didn't think that was the right path for me. Thought about speech pathology for a little bit. I volunteered at Reed a few times. Decided I didn't want to do that either. And actually, 2 months before I graduated, I stumbled upon a Student Affairs Administration and Higher Education degree, and decided that was absolutely what I wanted to do.
What about that degree attracted you?
I had just bounced around so much in my undergraduate degree, and I had different people help me, especially here at IU East. Susie Shapiro was my academic advisor, and she was awesome. I would always go and sit with her and just chat about my future plans, what classes I should take, and she would always kind of steer me in different directions based on our conversations, and I said, that's what I want to be for other students. Wow. So once I figured that out, it kind of led me in the direction that was definitely the degree I needed to pursue.
And which psychology is a great background for that as well.
Yes, definitely, the counseling background.
Okay, John, what about you?
Pretty similar. I was really undecided, but through the course of my undergraduate, I had enough experiences working with other people that I knew that I wanted to do something in that capacity. And so one of the things, as you can see with all the different areas that I delved in social science, I was trying to satisfy that curiosity, and I knew kind of that was the direction. I knew I wanted to do something with helping other people, and getting into advising was just seemed like a perfect fit. I got to use all the skills that I had acquired throughout my undergraduate and through grad school in helping people, much like myself and yourself, make decisions about career trajectory and opportunities, you know, what they're going to be able to do with their education.
Okay. Now you mentioned skills, so we're going to jump right into the next question. Yeah. When we think about undergraduate degrees, we think about knowledge and skills that the students learn. Obviously, many of them do come through academic programs, but they can come through other things as well. Was there anything surprising about the knowledge that each of you gained in your major, in your undergrad career? Was there anything surprising about the knowledge that you gained, and what were some of those skills, and perhaps even how do you apply them in your current position? And I know you already spoke a little bit about that. So I know that's a big question, but what were the knowledge and skills you might have learned? Were there any surprises? How do you apply them?
I don't know the surprises, but the knowledge and skills, I could probably go on forever. Some of the biggest that college taught me, organization and communication. Those two have been critical, especially when you're working with student population. You have so many students that you're responsible for, so you have to be organized, take good, keep track of students, take good notes so that you remember the next time you see them, kind of what you've done. Communication is key. Especially since working here, a significant portion of it is done via written. And sometimes you have to think creatively about how to say something so that you really get that message across. So those two have absolutely been critical. And then I think the other big thing, just what college education teaches in general, critical thinking, how to synthesize information, how to draw your own conclusions. I found that to have been imperative and helped me enormously in my professional life.
Now, John, you actually also advise distance education students.
Yeah.
So they're not in the office sitting across from you.
No.
Does that present any challenges, and are there any creative ways that you use your communication skills in those situations?
Yeah, it presents a lot of challenges. Things that make perfect sense to me, you'll send the email and then you get the litany of questions that comes back because the student has interpreted something that you said. So one of the things that I've learned is to be very succinct and direct, and to make things not open for a whole lot of interpretation, to try to be very, so to make it simplistic in a sense. I found that works the best. And then, a lot of times with those distance ed students, you also have to take the time to explain things, clearly. And sometimes you have to explain it more than once.
And I'll just add, because I know a little bit about what you do, talking about skills, technology. And of course, in our undergrad programs, no matter where we were in technology, we were learning technology, but how does that also aid you in your current role? Is there anything new or unique that you use?
For the most part, it's through email or telephone. We do have the capability to use the Adobe Suite. They have a Connect that allows some interaction, provided the student on the other end has some basic computer capabilities, right? But you can use video, we can share screens, we can sometimes even remote in and take over to maybe walk them through something. I don't use that as much, though. I offer that to students, but most of them seem to be okay with the telephone and email. But it does exist. That opportunity is there.
Okay. So Jessica, thinking about your undergraduate preparation, what are some knowledge and skills you gained? Were there any surprises? And then what is some application?
One thing I've really brought with me from my undergraduate degree into my role now as the Americorps member working with students is viewing the students as a whole person. So not just as a student sitting in front of me with things to do here on campus, but knowing that when they come in for a chat with me, if they're saying, well, I'm failing my math class, and then they mention something about stress at home, that yes, we have to have a conversation about math and what we're going to do about that situation, but also just kind of chatting what's going on at home, how can we kind of help you relieve that stress, because anything that's bothering them and the other aspects of their lives, whether that's family, friends, work, anything, is going to affect them at school too. So it's really having the conversation of how are you doing as a whole, what's going on in every aspect of your life that can be affecting you here on campus.
And I'm assuming with some of your psychology classes, you probably had courses to work on counseling skills, listening, and how to phrase things back to people. So I'm sure that I know you use that every day. when you're working with
Yes.
students?
Yeah, I've been able to apply a lot of different kind of techniques from my counseling class while I'm sitting with students. How to draw more information out of them, how to make them feel more comfortable, let them know I'm listening still. So it's been very useful to me in this role.
Great. Well, thank you. So thinking about you achieved your degree. What happened? What has been your career path from the time you were closing out your degree to getting to where you are? You know, John, I know you were at another institution before coming here. And Jessica, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the end of your undergrad and how that's helped you get to where you are now. So, John, do you want to start with?
Yeah, well, so I started with another, and it was interesting. I wasn't able to find a job immediately, so I was pursuing some additional credentialing through another local college, and had made some relationships, and in the course of that, an opportunity for an advising position had presented itself, and so I applied and was offered the position, and so that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And it didn't take very long to realize that you know, I was right, that I knew I wanted to be working in a capacity where I could help other people. So it was kind of non-traditional in the sense I was there, you know, doing something else, and then this opportunity presented itself. And then it was kind of, you know, similar with ending up here. I was there for a number of years, and had one of the things that I was afforded the opportunity to, blessed to be able to go back to school and work on my master's through here at IU East. And shortly after I completed, I saw a position open here. And I remember reading the course description, and it was everything that I already did. And so I knew, and not to mention, I'd had such a wonderful experience, I thought I want an opportunity to go and work with the students there. I'd developed some wonderful relationships with staff and faculty, had some great relationships with students, and I saw it as an opportunity to you know, to be able to continue that and to do it in a place where I had been given the opportunity to go to graduate school. So I applied in pretty short order. I think from application to hire was about 6 weeks. So it all happened pretty quickly. You know, I finished grad school, saw the position, applied, and here I am.
And the position was a master's degree required position?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So great timing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, Jessica, what about you?
So once I stumbled upon the Student Affairs Administration degree, I went and sat in Susie Shapiro's office yet again and kind of chatted with her about how I would go about pursuing this degree now that I was getting ready to graduate in 2 months. She sent me to Katie Cheney, who's the lead Humanities and Social Sciences advisor. So I sat down and chatted with Katie. Katie has the same degree from Miami University. And so she said she would call around and try and find me an office to intern in for the last 2 months of my degree to get some experience, and she called you.
Oh, yes.
And you let me come on halfway through the semester, which was amazing. I don't know that a lot of offices would have let me do that.
So career services,
yes,
which
career
is one
services
area
of
student affairs.
So I got to help you, watch you work on resumes with students, get their stories out of them as you worked on resumes, which was interesting to me because I had never thought of it as more than just putting their general skill set on a piece of paper, but really learning their story and figuring out what they had to offer. So I graduated in December, so I had a very short period of time to kind of pull everything together. I did apply to a graduate program. I interviewed. I did not get an assistantship, which is what I really was looking forward to in the graduate program. So I decided to take another year, gain some experience, and try again. And from my connection with you and Carrie Reisner and University College, I kind of stumbled into the Scholar Corps Americorps position. Carrie called me about it one day and asked me to apply. And it kind of took off from there. That's what I've been doing the past year. Been lots of great experience working one-on-one with students as a student success coach. So I was able to reapply to many different programs. I interviewed at several schools, and then I'm going to be starting my master's degree at Wright State University in the fall.
So I am familiar with Americorps. I've worked with Americorps in the past. Maybe you could just share a little bit about what Americorps is and how that ties in with your Scholar Corps position at IU East.
So my position really within Americorps is giving back to the community. These students have an amazing scholarship opportunity to go to school for 4 years. And so it's me being able to give back to not only the Richmond community, but to IU East, which was great for me since I graduated from here. But it's also enabled me to help the students give back through service projects and getting involved on campus. So not only do I get to give back to the community, I also get to help the students give back as well and make sure they understand that's important too while they're here.
So these 21st century scholars are students who are coming in with some grant money. If they continue to be successful, they can keep the scholarship. So not only are you advising them one-on-one with kind of like what you've given that picture, that holistic advising, but also just encouraging them to get their hands involved in
get
some
involved
things.
on campus, in the community, in different clubs, and really making sure they get out there and grab every opportunity that's offered here.
Great, thank you for sharing about Americorps. So back to your undergraduate degree, can either of you think of opportunities or challenges that caused you to employ the knowledge or skills that you gained as an undergrad? You've touched on it a little bit with some of the things, but can you think of a specific situation?
I'm trying to think.
I know we talk about problem solving a lot as being one of those skills that often a humanities or liberal arts student graduates with. So I know for a fact both of you use that every day in finding out answers to what's going on with students. But you talked about communication a lot earlier.
Yeah, and that's even with a student who is sitting in front of you, you know, separate out the logistics of distance ed students and figuring out how to communicate effectively with those. Those communication skills I learned even with students who are in front of me, attending behavior, you know, echoing, mirroring, being able to reiterate back to the student to make sure I'm hearing them clearly, active listening. You know, there's a difference between, you know, being engaged in the conversation and just passively sitting there checking off things on the sheet, and that's been extremely important to, you know, making sure that those persons realize that you're aware and that you are there with them and present in the moment.
Jessica, you mentioned earlier one of the reasons you might have been directed more toward student affairs and higher education as a career was because of your own experience as an undergrad. And I'm not sure how much you mentioned, but you'd been at IU East was your third college.
Right.
So what is something, I mean, I'm sure you've taken something from that experience that makes you a better counselor or advisor of students. And what is that?
Really, for me, it's just talking with the students. If they have a lot of other stuff going on outside of school and they're very distracted and they're not doing well, I really have to take the time to chat with them and see what is your best option. Let's discuss everything that's going on, how it's affecting you. And for some students, it is better for them as a person to take maybe a year off and get things situated at home or get things situated at work before coming back to school to be able to focus. And just making sure that if they have questions, well, where's the Math and Science Center, walking them up to it. Making sure they have all the information they need to contact their advisor, whatever center they may need to go to, just because I needed all of that extra help as a student, and so I want to make sure they're getting that extra help so that they can be successful here at IU East.
Great, thanks. So when we think about the bigger context of liberal arts, and of course we use this, you know, the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, that they're the ones putting on this Pathways series, so we're focusing on those degrees, and that's why you are here as guests. When we think of the larger context, so whether it's in this community, in the region, or perhaps even national and global context, someone with a liberal arts background, humanities, social sciences, what is it that they can contribute to growth, development, creativity, innovation? Are there things that you have seen or maybe even know from your own background that might stand out perhaps from someone who had a very specific technical education background?
Go ahead.
I know my cousin has an engineering degree, so to her, when we say problem solving, she immediately thinks of an equation or a way to figure out some mathematical, something in that area when she thinks of problem solving. To me, it's more of talking to the person and figuring out what's going on with them, what is their goal, how are we going to get them there. So I think that I have a different idea of what problem solving means to me than what she does, and neither of them I don't think is better than the other. But together, I mean, you get the whole kind of view.
So maybe it's a more broad picture. That's an interesting point. Yeah. Have you seen anything, John? What do you?
Yeah, well, I think the liberal arts creates a well-rounded person, and the other thing I think about is I liked your example. Generally, persons within these particular disciplines, they tend to look at things with a different lens, and I think sometimes that's needed. You definitely have those persons who are looking for a very specific way to solve something, but sometimes it's that fresh perspective that's generated by persons who are willing to think outside of the box and take chances. You know, sort of that thinking for innovation idea of, you know, let's come up with as many ideas as we can and figure out, you know, maybe a unique way to approach this. And you see that a lot with the liberal arts students.
Great, thank you. Both of you are directly advising students. That's a big part of what you do. And of course, I work in career services, so we're working on more the career development side of it, whether it's students who are early in their college career, picking a major, changing a major, all of that. When you have the opportunity to speak with someone, it doesn't have to be a student, it could be somebody in your life because they see you as an expert in something. What kinds of conversations do you have with them when they're trying to pick a major, and if you feel that they might be a good fit for humanities, social sciences, what are some things that you would say to them to open up their mind to that?
I think the biggest thing is I work with a lot of undecided students or students who are in general studies sort of by their own admission a placeholder until they figure out what they want to do. Is I try to get them to start thinking about, you know, where is your passion? What is it, you know, let's talk about some things that you do, and when you're doing them, you feel sort of absorbed in that. You know, what is there a subject area or a content area that you can read for hours on end, and you enjoy it, you thoroughly enjoy it, or is there a topic, or, you know, and that helps begin, that part of the conversation helps begin to narrow down, okay, well, let's think about how would that fit into, you know, career. Where could you see yourself if you had to envision yourself? Where do you envision yourself down the road? Those sorts of conversations, and then we can, from there, we can begin to use some of the tools that are, you know, that are at our disposal. There's any number of ways to begin to kind of, you know, we can look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and look at the occupation, the handbook to look at potential careers and positions, what sort of education is required, and then talk about how the programs that are offered or housed within the School of Humanities and Social Science would fit into that sort of career trajectory.
What about you, Jessica? What kind of angle do you take?
So with my own experience, I kept trying to find a specific major that would take me directly to the career. And if someone would have asked me, well, what would be your dream job? What is your end goal? I could have told them I want to work on a college campus helping students, and I could have worked backwards because there's no specific route that you have to take to get into student affairs. And so I do that a lot with students. If they tell me, well, I don't know, I don't really want to do something in humanities and social sciences, will I be able to get a job? So we have the conversation of, well, what is your goal? What is your dream job? Okay, that's what you want to do? Well, let's kind of walk backwards. You could use any number of these specific degrees to get there, and it's really about how you tailor your experience through internships, classes that you take, clubs you join, how you get involved on campus in the community to get yourself into maybe graduate school if you need to, or to get into that career and meet other people to network. So I kind of walk backwards. I guess I take kind of a different approach. You kind of approach it from the front end, whereas I come from the back end just because of my own experience and how I had to approach my career.
And perhaps the student would be, you know, depending on where the student is, one might work better. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll never forget one time I was at an orientation, and I had an incoming freshman with his parent, and they were walking through, and we were talking about majors and how we offer a Focus 2 assessment, which can help students pick a major. And I was talking to them, and I asked the student, you know, have you thought about what you might want to study or major in? And he didn't want to say, and finally he said, well, I was thinking English or journalism, and his mother kind of rolled her eyes and said, but what can he do with a degree in English? And it was so funny because we were at the end of the fair, and I said, well, how much time do you have? Because I could tell you a lot. And I think what I appreciate about our School of Humanities and Social Sciences, even in the building where a lot of our classes are, you'll see signs hanging down in the hallway that says, I think they read what you can do with a degree in criminal justice,
sociology,
political science, you know, all these different majors, and it's so broad. I mean, the list is endless, and I think that maybe we ask the wrong questions sometimes. What can you do with this degree, but also what are you doing to build a skill set while you're getting your education? So both of you make some good points there. If you were hiring a new employee, and I know some of you have, well, you've both gone through interview processes through different things, so you've been on the other end of it. But what are some things that, and maybe you tell students that we want to see, or that an employer wants to see in hiring someone, and maybe even in the context of their educational background? What do you think that they want to see?
I think the biggest is organization and communication. Those are the, I mean, critical to working professionally any place.
And how does an employer know that about a potential employee? Where do they look for that?
The first place, unfortunately, you only get a split second to impress them, is with your resume and any other information that you may provide. The rest, though, is going to be contextual to the interview, and you know, that's why it's very important to.
So if a resume is disorganized and has some typos, that probably is not a good sign that that person has good communication skills. So then in an interview, you know, I mean, obviously, John, you were chosen to be in the position that you're in, and there were other people who were competing for that position. Jessica, you have gone through grad school interviews, and you were chosen and actually got a GA position that was top notch. What do you think are some things that sold each of you in those positions?
I would definitely say for me, it was probably my experiences that I had had. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do, but once I knew that's what I wanted, I fully pursued it. So through taking the internship and then deciding it would be best for me to take a year off to get some more knowledge and experience, and through the Scholar Corps position, I think that really helped me being able to say, well, I had to take a year, but I decided to do the Scholar Corps position, and I'm going to get more experience working with students because this is what I love to do. And being able to talk about that experience in the interviews really helped me.
Great.
Definitely experience and background in advising, but also one of the things that I had the opportunity to do over the last several years, we work closely, my previous employer and IU East worked closely on several things, so I sat on task force and I developed relationships and connections with persons who are already part of this organization, and so that was critical. But then the other thing was during the course of my master's program, the big piece was I spent almost a year working on a project about student engagement, and I was able to, you know, in talking about that, I think to convey my passion for working with students and help them figure out what it is that they want to do and how their education fits into their, you know, not just career but into their life plans and goals.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We are out of time. Thank you for sharing all your wonderful knowledge. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Career Pathways. We'll see you next time.